The wind abruptly ceased, leaving an unsettling stillness that blanketed the fields like a heavy fog. Insects, usually buzzing with life, fell silent, their absence a haunting echo in the night air. Even the farm animals stood frozen, their eyes fixated on the wheat swaying gently, as if sensing an unseen force drawing near. In that eerie moment, a shiver ran down the spine of anyone who dared to venture outside. Something was coming, something that defied explanation, a presence that felt both ancient and otherworldly. Just as the darkness deepened, a flash of light flickered at the edge of the horizon, illuminating the night with a strange glow that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the very heartbeat of the earth. But before anyone could react, the atmosphere thickened, and an unsettling vibration rippled through the ground. The field, once a canvas of tranquility, now held its breath, poised on the brink of revealing a mystery that would challenge everything they thought they knew. The wind abruptly ceased, leaving an unsettling stillness that blanketed the fields like a heavy fog. Insects, usually buzzing with life, fell silent, their absence a haunting echo in the night air. Even the farm animals stood frozen, their eyes fixated on the wheat swaying gently, as if sensing an unseen force drawing near. An oppressive weight settled over the landscape, thick and palpable, ensnaring every sound, every breath, in a web of tension. "What's wrong with the animals tonight?" Sarah murmured to herself, her voice barely rising above a whisper, as if speaking aloud might shatter the fragile silence. She glanced back at the barn, its weathered wood groaning softly in the absence of the usual nocturnal serenade. The moon hung high in the ink-black sky, an indifferent witness to the unfolding enigma below. Its silvery light poured over the fields, illuminating the tall stalks of wheat that swayed softly, creating gentle waves that rippled through the expanse. But tonight, the beauty of the rural landscape felt tainted by an undercurrent of dread that seeped into the bones of those who lived nearby. As the minutes dragged on, the silence deepened, becoming almost deafening. Shadows stretched across the earth, twisting and morphing in the dim moonlight as if they were alive, conspiring against those who dared to gaze into the darkness. The air grew thick with a metallic tang, a bitter reminder that something was not right. Out on the dirt road, Sarah, a local farmer's daughter, stood just outside the creaking doorway of their old barn. The familiar sounds of the night, crickets chirping, the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze, had vanished, leaving her feeling exposed like prey in the vast wilderness. Her heart raced as she squinted into the darkness, trying to discern any movement among the wheat fields. But the night remained obstinately still, refusing to reveal its secrets. The farm animals were unusually restless, their breaths coming in frantic bursts. The horses stomped their hooves, a rhythm of unease echoing in the stillness, while the sheep huddled together, their bleats rising and falling like a mournful song. Sarah could feel the tension radiating from them, a shared anxiety that thrummed in the air. "Why won't you settle down?" she called softly to the horses, her voice trembling slightly. They responded with a nervous whinny, their eyes wide, reflecting the moonlight like polished stones. Then, without warning, a flash of light flickered at the edge of the horizon. It was brief but powerful, illuminating the night with a strange glow that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the very heartbeat of the earth. The light cast elongated shadows over the rows of wheat, distorting the landscape in a way that felt both mesmerizing and terrifying. The glow danced in hues of blue and gold, flickering like a dying flame, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she took a hesitant step closer to the field. "Did you see that?" she whispered, breathless, as if speaking would summon whatever lay beyond the light. The comforting presence of her father or brother seemed far away, and her instincts screamed at her to turn back, to retreat into the safety of the barn and lock the door tight. But an inexplicable pull urged her forward, compelling her to confront whatever lay beyond the veil of darkness. The ground beneath her feet vibrated subtly, a gentle thrumming that resonated deep within her chest. It was a sound that felt both foreign and familiar, echoing with an ancient wisdom that sent shivers through her spine. The wheat, once a vibrant green, now appeared to shimmer under the ethereal light, taking on a life of its own. The stalks seemed to sway not with the wind, but rather with an unseen force, a gentle beckoning that whispered secrets she could not comprehend. The sensation was intoxicating, yet laced with a creeping fear that wrapped around her heart. "Stay close, Sarah," she imagined her father's voice saying, steady and reassuring, though she was alone. As she stood there, transfixed, the air grew heavier, thickening with a palpable tension that felt almost alive. It was as if the very atmosphere conspired to hold its breath, waiting for something to break the silence, something that would unravel the mystery lurking just beyond sight. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her pulse quickened as the vibrations intensified, resonating with a rhythm that felt both primal and cosmic. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the air, a sound that could have been mistaken for distant thunder, but the sky remained clear, the stars twinkling innocently above. "Is it a storm?" she asked aloud, her voice trembling, though no wind stirred. The ground quaked beneath her feet, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah felt as if the earth itself was awakening, stretching out of a long slumber. The sensation was disorienting, a dizzying collision of fear and wonder that left her paralyzed in place. In that moment, she knew something was coming, something that defied explanation. It was a presence that felt both ancient and otherworldly, a force that seemed to shift the very fabric of reality. Just as the darkness deepened, she felt the pulse of something beyond the ordinary, something that promised to challenge everything she thought she knew about her world. But before she could process the enormity of it all, the vibrations crescendoed to a climax, and a hush fell over the field, an eerie calm that swallowed all sound. The moment hung heavy in the air, charged with anticipation and dread. Something was about to happen, something that would change the course of their lives forever. The night, once a canvas of tranquility, now held its breath, poised on the brink of revealing a mystery that would haunt them all. The night deepened, draping the landscape in a velvety cloak, while the vast expanse of the rural field stretched endlessly before Sarah. Shadows twisted and danced among the rows of corn, creating a symphony of darkness that seemed to whisper secrets. Secrets only the night could comprehend. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, a silence that pressed against her ears, amplifying even the faintest rustle of leaves or the distant call of an owl. It felt as though the very world had paused, as if nature itself held its breath, waiting for a cue, a signal that the time for revelation had come. The dirt road leading to the old barn lay just beyond the field, a faint path barely visible under the ghostly light of the moon. It twisted like a serpent, winding through the tall stalks of corn that towered over her, their leaves whispering softly in the cool evening breeze. The scent of damp earth mixed with the sweet aroma of overripe corn filled her lungs, a reminder of the world she was rooted in, yet all of it felt so distant now. An oppressive weight settled in her chest, the kind that comes when one stands at the edge of the abyss, teetering between the known and the unknown. As she took a tentative step forward, the ground beneath her shifted subtly, the earth vibrating with an unearthly hum that echoed through her bones. The sound was not one she could easily place. It was a resonance that seemed to rise from the very core of the land, a low pulsation that sent shivers racing down her spine. With each heartbeat, the vibration grew stronger, more insistent, as if the ground was calling to her, urging her to listen closely, to heed its warning. In the distance, the silhouette of the barn loomed, a dark sentinel against the backdrop of the starlit sky. Its weathered wooden beams creaked softly, as if the structure itself was alive, sharing in the tension that hung thick in the air. The shadows cast by the moonlight danced along its sides, creating an illusion of movement that made Sarah's heart race. She felt a tugging sensation, an inexplicable urge to move closer, yet every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to flee into the comfort of the familiar. Then, just as she took another step, a flicker of light caught her eye. It was faint at first, a pinprick of illumination that seemed to pulse in time with the vibrations beneath her feet. Sarah squinted into the darkness, her breath hitching in her throat. The light danced erratically, weaving in and out of sight among the cornstalks, casting eerie shadows that flickered like ghostly figures. It beckoned her, an unspoken promise of answers wrapped in the enigma of the night. But it also radiated an unsettling aura that sent her instincts into overdrive. It was then that she noticed the animals. The chickens in the nearby coop were restless, clucking anxiously in a frenzied chorus, their feathers ruffled as they darted back and forth. Cows, usually placid and unbothered, stood huddled together, their large eyes wide with fear, scanning the dark expanse as if they sensed something lurking just beyond their perception. Even the wind, which had been a gentle companion moments before, seemed to hold its breath, stilled by the ethereal tension that enveloped the field. Sarah's heart raced as she felt a prickling sensation at the nape of her neck, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. She turned slowly, scanning the encompassing darkness, half expecting to find a figure lurking just beyond the reach of the moonlight. But there was only the vastness of the field, the whispering wind, and that insistent pulsing light. It felt like a siren's call, both mesmerizing and terrifying, pulling her deeper into the unknown. The moment stretched on, a taut thread of anticipation that threatened to snap. Just as she resolved to retreat, to return to the safety of her home, the ground beneath her trembled violently, a sudden jolt that sent her stumbling backward. The vibrations escalated, a cacophony of sound that began to echo around her, resonating through the very air she breathed. It was as if the universe itself was awakening, shaking off the dust of centuries, and in that moment, Sarah felt a surge of primal fear. Through the chaos, a low rumble echoed again, but this time it was accompanied by a flash, a blinding light that shot up from the field, illuminating the landscape in an otherworldly glow. For a fleeting second, everything was visible. The rows of corn, the barn, and the trembling animals, all caught in the stark brightness. But just as quickly, the light vanished, plunging the world back into darkness, leaving only echoes of its brilliance behind. Sarah stood frozen, her breath coming in quick gasps, her mind racing to comprehend what had just transpired. The silence returned, but it was thick with an electric charge, a promise that the night had only just begun to unveil its secrets. The pulse she had felt earlier now throbbed in time with her racing heart, a reminder that something lay hidden in the depths of the field, waiting for her to uncover it. As she stood on the precipice of the unknown, the weight of the night pressed down on her, heavy with the promise of revelation and the threat of despair. The darkness whispered around her, and she knew in her gut that whatever had stirred in the field was not done with her yet. The air crackled with tension, and in that moment, Sarah understood. Tonight would not end without exposing the truth, a truth that lay coiled in the shadows, ready to strike. The night wrapped around Sarah like a thick veil, the darkness swallowing her whole as she tried to shake off the hypnotic pull of the field. The air was electric, pulsating with an energy that felt both ancient and alive. She could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears, the sound merging with the low, resonant hum that seemed to emanate from the very earth beneath her feet. It was a sound she had never heard before, a hypnotic thrum that vibrated deep within her bones, beckoning her to step closer to the source. Despite the fear coiling in her stomach, she found herself drawn back toward the edge of the field, the soft rustling of the cornstalks whispering secrets in the wind. The night was alive with sound. The distant croaks of frogs echoed like a forgotten symphony, while the odd rustle of a creature in the underbrush punctuated the silence with startling clarity. Yet, amidst these familiar sounds, there was an underlying discord, a feeling that something was amiss, that nature itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. As she ventured farther, the ground beneath her shifted slightly, the soil yielding to her weight as if it were alive. She paused, the sensation sending a chill down her spine. The vibration pulsed again, stronger this time, and in that moment, Sarah felt it, the unmistakable sensation of being watched. She turned her head slowly, scanning the dark expanse of the field, but the shadows offered no answers, only a profound sense of isolation. The moon hung high above, casting a silvery glow over the landscape, but it only deepened the shadows, transforming the once familiar surroundings into a labyrinth of fear and uncertainty. Then, out of nowhere, the light returned, flickering like a distant star before erupting into a blinding radiance that illuminated the field once more. For a heartbeat, Sarah could see the unmistakable outline of something in the distance, a pattern etched into the ground among the corn, geometric and precise, a formation unlike anything she had ever seen. It was as if something had pressed down on the earth, leaving behind a message written in the language of ancient symbols. The light pulsed rhythmically, casting elongated shadows that danced across the landscape, momentarily breaking the oppressive darkness. Her breath caught in her throat as she took a step closer, the fear morphing into an insatiable curiosity. The air thickened around her, heavy with the scent of damp soil and something metallic, almost like the taste of iron on her tongue. The urge to turn back warred with the compulsion to understand, to uncover the truth hidden within the patterns sprawled before her. She could feel the vibrations intensifying, resonating within her chest, a reminder that whatever had caused this was still lurking, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. Suddenly, a sound sliced through the night, a sharp, metallic clang that echoed off the barn walls, reverberating like a death knell. It was a sound so out of place that it froze Sarah in her tracks. She strained her ears, trying to pinpoint its origin, but it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. The animals, once restless, now seemed eerily silent, as if they could sense something she could not. The stillness was unnerving, suffocating, and Sarah felt herself slipping into a void where the ordinary laws of nature no longer applied. In the midst of this chaos, she caught a fleeting glimpse of movement in the corner of her eye, a shadow darting between the rows of corn, a flicker of something that felt distinctly otherworldly. Panic surged within her, and she took a step back, her instincts screaming for her to flee. But the pull of the unknown was stronger, a gravity that held her firmly in place. She took a deep breath, her lungs filled with the cool night air, and stepped forward once more, her heart racing with each tentative movement. The formation lay just ahead, its geometric patterns glowing faintly in the dim light. The corn around it was flattened but not broken, a testament to some force she could not comprehend. She knelt beside it, fingers brushing against the smooth contours of the shapes, feeling the energy that radiated from them. It was a sensation unlike anything she had ever experienced, both soothing and terrifying, as if the very essence of the universe was whispering secrets directly into her soul. As she examined the shapes, a series of images flashed in her mind, ancient symbols from forgotten civilizations, the echoes of long-lost rituals, and the undeniable connection to something greater than herself. She felt a stirring deep inside, a sense of awakening that both exhilarated and frightened her. The night held secrets, and she was standing at the threshold, teetering on the brink of discovery. But just as she was about to commit fully to her exploration, the vibration surged violently once more, a wave of energy that knocked her back, sending her sprawling onto the cold, damp earth. The light flickered and dimmed, leaving only the silhouette of the formation against the backdrop of the night sky. Gasping for breath, Sarah scrambled to her feet, her heart pounding as terror gripped her once more. The feeling of being watched intensified, a palpable force that sent shivers racing down her spine. Every instinct urged her to flee, to escape the grasp of the unknown, but an undeniable compulsion to understand the truth kept her rooted in place. In that moment, Sarah realized the night was far from over. Something had awakened in the field, and it was hungry for revelation. The air crackled with anticipation as she stood there, poised between fear and curiosity, knowing with every fiber of her being that whatever lay ahead would change her life forever. The night enveloped Sarah like a thick, suffocating blanket, the darkness pressing in around her, amplifying every sound to an eerie crescendo. The air, once crisp and cool, felt charged now, a heavy pulse thrumming through the ground beneath her. As she steadied herself, the trembling in her hands echoed the disquiet buzzing in her mind, a cacophony of confusion and dread. She could hardly believe what lay before her, an intricate formation carved into the cornfield, its geometric patterns glowing like the remnants of some celestial event. A low hum began to resonate through the silence, a sound that seemed to vibrate from the very earth itself, wrapping around her like a forgotten hymn, beckoning her closer. The soft crackle of the corn stalks underfoot was drowned out by this persistent thrum, each pulse resonating in her chest as if the field were alive, its heartbeat entwined with her own. The air shimmered with an almost tangible energy, and she could feel it in her bones, a whisper of something ancient and inscrutable that thrummed through the air. As Sarah knelt beside the formation, her fingers brushed against the smooth contours, tracing the lines that glimmered faintly in the moonlight. The corn surrounding the shapes lay flattened but not broken, as if some unseen force had pressed it down with a delicate touch. A shiver ran down her spine as she imagined how such a thing could happen. The shapes were perfect, mathematical in their precision, and yet they felt organic, as though they had sprouted from the earth itself in a moment of cosmic creativity. The spirals and angles spoke of ancient languages, of rituals long forgotten, and with each breath, she felt the pull of history wrapping tighter around her. But then, without warning, the vibrations surged again, a violent wave that rolled through the field. It struck her like a physical blow, knocking her backward. The light pulsed erratically, and then fell dim, leaving only the silhouette of the formation etched against the vastness of the starlit sky. Gasping, Sarah scrambled to her feet, her heart hammering against her ribcage, each beat echoing the primal instinct to flee. The sensation of being watched intensified, an invisible gaze that prickled at the back of her neck, urging her to turn and run. But she could not. She was rooted in place by an insatiable curiosity, a longing to uncover the truth wrapped in the mystery that surrounded her. The night was still, but for the soft rustle of leaves and the distant croak of frogs, every sound amplified in the thick silence. The field felt more alive than ever, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for her next move. Sarah could almost hear the pulse of the cosmos in the quiet, a rhythm that matched the frantic beat of her own heart. It was as if the formation was communicating with her, a silent conversation that danced just beyond her understanding. A flicker of light caught her eye, a soft glow emanating from the center of the formation, pulsating like a heartbeat. It drew her in, the allure of the unknown beckoning her closer, igniting a fire of determination within her. She could feel the warmth radiating from it, a sensation both inviting and foreboding, as if it held the answers to questions she didn't even know she had. The air around her thickened, charged with a palpable energy that sent shivers racing down her spine. As she stepped forward, the hum grew louder, resonating deep within her, pulling her into the mystery that lay at her feet. She could almost hear the whispers of the past, echoes of those who had come before her, their secrets woven into the very fabric of the night. Each step felt monumental, as if she were crossing a threshold into another realm, a place where the boundaries of reality began to blur. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, a low, rumbling vibration that rippled through her very core. The light shifted, flaring brightly for a brief moment before plunging her into deep shadow once more. In that heartbeat of darkness, Sarah felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on her, a suffocating force that threatened to engulf her. The fear clawed at her insides, a primal instinct that screamed for her to escape. Yet she remained, caught in the thrall of the mysterious energy that surrounded her. The night air thickened with an electric tension, and she closed her eyes, allowing her senses to heighten. The scent of earth and corn mingled with something metallic, sharp, and invasive, filling her lungs with a heady mix of dread and wonder. The vibrations morphed into a pulsing rhythm, a cosmic heartbeat that seemed to synchronize with her own. In that moment, Sarah felt more connected to the universe than ever before, teetering on the edge of an extraordinary revelation. But just as quickly as it had begun, the light flickered and faded, plunging her into an almost oppressive darkness once more. The hum subsided to a whisper, leaving only the sound of her own ragged breathing to fill the void. The sensation of being observed returned, stronger now, as if the very essence of the field was aware of her presence. Her heart raced, caught between the thrill of discovery and the suffocating weight of fear. The formation loomed before her, a silent sentinel guarding its secrets, and Sarah knew that whatever lay within its geometric boundaries was far more than she could ever comprehend. With every ounce of courage she could muster, she took a step closer, knowing that the answers she sought might come at an unimaginable cost. The night was far from over, and the shadows held promises both terrifying and exhilarating. As she stood on the brink of a revelation, the air crackled with anticipation, and Sarah felt the weight of destiny pressing down upon her, urging her forward into the unknown. The next morning, a thick blanket of mist hung low over the fields, clinging to the earth like a shroud. Sarah emerged from her home, the weight of the night still heavy upon her shoulders. The vivid memories of the pulsating light and the otherworldly vibrations flooded her mind, igniting a fire of curiosity that battled against the gnawing edge of fear. She stepped out, her boots crunching against the gravel as she made her way toward the formation that had haunted her dreams. As she approached the field, the sun began to rise, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. The cornstalks shimmered with dew, their green hues contrasting sharply with the dark soil beneath. Yet it was not the beauty that held her attention. It was the inexplicable pattern etched into the earth that drew her closer. The formation was no longer hidden under the cloak of night, and now it stood boldly against the backdrop of the morning sun. With each step, Sarah felt a mix of dread and intrigue. The geometric shapes were unlike anything she had ever seen. Perfect circles that spiraled outward, interlaced with lines that formed intricate designs. It was as though the field itself had been transformed into a canvas, painted with the brush strokes of an unseen hand. She knelt down, her trembling fingers brushing against the soft soil, noting how the plants lay flattened but somehow intact, as if they had been carefully pressed down rather than crushed. The air was thick with a metallic scent, sharper now in the daylight, and she could taste it on her tongue. It sent shivers down her spine, igniting her senses with every breath she took. The sounds of the countryside seemed muted in comparison, as though the world outside the formation was holding its breath, waiting for something profound to occur. The birds had fallen silent, and even the rustling leaves seemed to hush in reverence to the phenomenon that lay before her. As she examined the lines, her heart raced with the realization that these shapes were not random. They bore a significance that eluded her. Each curve and angle seemed to pulse with a hidden energy, a language of the cosmos that teased at her understanding. She could feel the weight of the unknown pressing upon her, an invisible gaze that scrutinized her every movement, urging her to unravel the mystery that lay before her. Sarah stood up, her heart pounding in her chest as she turned to see her neighbors approaching, their faces a mix of curiosity and confusion. Jake, the local farmer, was the first to break the silence, his brow furrowed in disbelief. "What on earth happened here, Sarah?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I don't know," she replied, her voice wavering. "But I think it's connected to last night, to the lights and the vibrations." The others gathered around, their eyes darting from the formation to Sarah, their expressions a blend of skepticism and intrigue. "You didn't see anything, did you?" Clara, a longtime resident of the area, asked, her tone laced with disbelief. "You can't really expect us to believe this is anything but a prank." "I know what I felt," Sarah insisted, her voice rising with a mix of frustration and urgency. "There was something out there, something watching." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the group, and Sarah could see the hesitation in their eyes. Some wanted to dismiss her entirely, while others were drawn in by the gravity of her words. "You're scaring us, Sarah," Jake warned, visibly unsettled. "What if it's just a joke? You're not suggesting it's something supernatural?" The very thought sent a chill coursing through her. "I don't know what it is," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But we can't ignore it. Look at the formation. It's impossible." As they gathered closer, contradictions began to arise in their accounts of the previous night. Clara claimed she had seen a bright flash of light, but Jake insisted that he had only heard strange sounds, while another neighbor, Mark, swore he felt a deep vibration in his bones. Each story, while unique, intertwined like threads of a tapestry, weaving a narrative that was both compelling and confusing. "What if we're not alone?" Mark whispered, his eyes darting around the field as if expecting something to materialize from the shadows. "What if something is still watching us?" A palpable silence fell over the group, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. Sarah could feel the tension rising, the fear that gnawed at the edges of their collective consciousness. She looked around, taking in the anxious faces of her neighbors, and realized that the presence she had felt was not merely her own. It was shared among them, an unspoken bond forged in the crucible of the unknown. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the air, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. The sound was reminiscent of the pulse she had felt the night before, and it sent a jolt of terror racing through her veins. The others exchanged fearful glances, their previous bravado dissipating like mist in the morning sun. "Let's get out of here," Clara urged, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to stick around to find out what that was." But Sarah couldn't move. She stood frozen, her gaze fixed on the formation, the intricate patterns now feeling almost alive, as if inviting her further into their mystery. The air crackled with an energy that was both intoxicating and terrifying, pulling her closer, urging her to discover the truth hidden within the geometric design that had disrupted their lives. As the group began to retreat, Sarah felt a wave of desperation wash over her. What if they were leaving behind answers? What if the key to understanding everything lay in the patterns before her? Just as she opened her mouth to call them back, the ground trembled beneath her, and the world around her seemed to blur, the lines of reality bending in ways she could not comprehend. In that moment, the sensation of being watched intensified, a presence lingering just beyond her field of vision, an unseen force that seemed to weave through the air like smoke. Sarah's heart raced, the fear clawing at her insides as she turned back to the formation, determined to unlock the secrets that lay within, even as the shadows deepened around them. Something was waiting, something ancient and powerful, and she was about to uncover the truth, even if it meant confronting the unimaginable. The dawn that followed the night of terror began as a muted canvas, the sun struggling to break free from the heavy quilt of clouds hanging low in the sky. The fields stretched out in front of Sarah, muted greens and browns interspersed with patches of damp earth that glistened from the morning dew. Yet despite the beauty of the landscape, a heavy silence wrapped around the town, a silence that felt charged with a tension that was almost palpable. The group gathered near the edge of the formation, their expressions a mixture of dread and curiosity. Clara stood slightly apart, her arms crossed tightly as if to ward off the chill that had nothing to do with the weather. The others fidgeted nervously, stealing glances at the intricate patterns etched into the earth, still fresh and vivid against the backdrop of a waning night. The circles and lines twisted and turned, creating a geometric dance that seemed to pulse with a rhythm of its own, echoing the low rumble they had felt the night before. As Sarah stepped closer, the air thickened, a metallic tang filling her nostrils and coating her tongue. It was a taste of fear, of something unearthly that lingered just out of reach. She could feel the weight of the silence pressing down on her, and for a moment it felt as though the world had paused, holding its breath along with her. The wind whispered through the stalks of corn, a soft susurration that seemed to carry secrets. But the words were lost to her, swirling away like smoke in the breeze. "Look at the way the plants bend," someone murmured, breaking the spell of silence. Sarah turned her gaze to the surrounding fields. It was true, the stalks around the formation were not broken but bent, as if they had been gently coaxed into submission by an unseen hand. The patterns were not merely random, they were meticulously crafted, each curve and angle precise, as if designed by a master artist who understood the very language of the cosmos. Yet, the beauty of it felt tainted by an undercurrent of dread. The memories of the night before crashed through Sarah's mind like waves against a rocky shore. The lights, those strange, flickering orbs that danced in the dark sky, had illuminated the field, casting eerie shadows that had twisted and turned in ways that defied logic. They had pulsated, almost alive, as if they had been drawn to the formation, as if they were part of it in some unfathomable way. She could almost hear the hum of energy that had thrummed through the air, vibrating in her very bones. "Do you think it's safe to be here?" Clara's voice broke through her reverie, laced with uncertainty. "What if whatever did this comes back?" The tremor in her voice echoed the fear that coursed through the group, a shared understanding that something beyond their comprehension lingered in the air. Sarah glanced over at Clara, her heart heavy with the weight of unspoken words. "We need to understand what this means," she replied, her own voice shaking slightly as she forced herself to speak. "What if this is a message? What if we're meant to find out what it's trying to tell us?" The thought of embracing the mystery thrilled her, but it also chilled her to the core. What if the answers they sought were far more sinister than they could imagine? As the minutes passed, the tension in the air thickened. The low rumble returned, a deep vibration that resonated through the ground, rattling the very bones of the earth beneath their feet. The group exchanged frightened glances, eyes wide with disbelief. The pulse was almost rhythmic now, a heartbeat that seemed to echo the very essence of the formation. It felt as though the earth was alive, breathing, and watching them with ancient eyes. Suddenly, a shadow flitted across the field, a fleeting movement that sent a jolt of panic through Sarah's chest. Her heart raced as she spun around, but there was nothing there. Just the trees, standing sentinel at the edge of the field, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers against the gloomy sky. The birds had fallen silent, their absence almost deafening, amplifying the thudding of her heart as she strained to hear any sound, any sign of what might be lurking just beyond her vision. "Did you see that?" one of the men whispered, his voice trembling. "I swear something moved." "They're just shadows," Clara snapped back, her bravado faltering. But even she couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone, that something was lurking just beyond the veil of their understanding. The formation seemed to beckon them closer, drawing Sarah in like a moth to a flame. She took a step forward, her feet moving almost of their own accord, the ground beneath her sturdy yet somehow malleable, as if it could shift at any moment. Each step felt monumental, the distance to the geometric pattern stretching and contracting like a living thing. As she approached, the air grew dense, heavy with an energy that prickled against her skin, a sensation both exhilarating and terrifying. In that moment, the fear that had gripped her heart transformed into a desperate need to uncover the truth. She knelt before the formation, her fingers brushing against the cool earth, tracing the lines that wound through the soil like veins. There was something profoundly ancient here, something that spoke to her at a primal level. It felt as though she were touching the very fabric of reality, a thread that connected her to a past she could not comprehend. The wind picked up, swirling around her, carrying with it a cacophony of whispers that teased her ears, but never formed into coherent words. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, fleeting and elusive, yet she could not tear her gaze away from the formation. The pattern seemed to shimmer under her touch, shifting slightly as though responding to her presence. Was it merely her imagination, or did the air vibrate with an unseen energy, a call to awaken something long dormant? Suddenly, a flash of light erupted from the formation, blinding her momentarily. She shielded her eyes, heart pounding with fear and awe as the brilliance illuminated the entire field, casting long shadows that stretched into the distance. The light pulsed rhythmically, synchronized with the deep rumble that echoed through the ground, and in that moment, Sarah felt a surge of understanding wash over her. What if this was a doorway? What if they had stumbled upon a threshold between worlds, a space where the unknown mingled with the familiar? The fear that had gripped her moments ago morphed into a fierce curiosity, a yearning to understand what lay beyond the veil of their reality. But just as quickly as it had come, the light faded, leaving behind an unsettling darkness that felt heavier than before. The rumble subsided into an eerie silence, and Sarah's heart sank as she realized the others were backing away, retreating from the very mystery that had drawn her in. She could sense their growing fear, their need to escape, but the threads of the unknown were intertwined with her very being now. As her friends distanced themselves, Sarah felt a profound sense of isolation wash over her. She stood alone at the precipice of discovery, teetering between the known and the unknown, the familiar and the extraordinary. She wanted to call out to them, to urge them to stay, to confront the fear that had taken root in their hearts, but the words caught in her throat, swallowed by the weight of the mystery that enveloped her. In that moment, she understood that the answers they sought might come at a price. The shadows deepened around her as she stood before the formation, a solitary figure against the vastness of the unknown. The air crackled with energy, and the pulse of the earth thrummed beneath her feet, whispering secrets that would change everything they thought they knew. Suddenly, a single chilling thought pierced through her mind. What if the truth was more terrifying than the fear itself? What if they were not merely observers in this cosmic dance, but players in a game far beyond their comprehension? Sarah's heart raced as she wrestled with the weight of that uncertainty, the shadows of doubt creeping in, intertwining with her resolve. The formation was not just a mystery, it was a question posed by the universe itself, and she stood on the brink of answering it, even as the darkness threatened to swallow her whole. Would she be brave enough to face whatever lay ahead, or would she turn back, leaving the truth buried in the depths of the unknown? The choice hung before her, heavy with consequence, and as the wind howled around her, she knew that whatever happened next would change everything. The air thickened with an intangible tension, wrapping around Sarah like a shroud as she stood alone, staring at the formation that loomed before her. It was mesmerizing and terrifying all at once, an intricate design etched into the earth, its geometric precision defying all natural explanation. Each curve and line seemed to pulse with an energy that resonated deep within her bones, evoking a sense of something ancient, something sacred. The wind whispered secrets in her ear, carrying the scent of damp earth mingled with an inexplicable metallic tang that sent shivers racing down her spine. As she took a tentative step closer, the ground beneath her feet felt alive, vibrating with an almost imperceptible hum. It was as if the very soil was thrumming in sync with her heartbeat, amplifying her pulse and wrapping her in a cocoon of sound that drowned out everything else. The distant rustle of leaves, the faint croak of frogs, and the quiet chirping of crickets faded, leaving only the rhythmic thrum that resonated through her core. It was a sound that beckoned her, urging her to delve deeper into the enigma before her. But with each step, she felt the weight of her friends' retreating presence, their fear echoing in the corners of her mind. They had fled when the first tremors of the unknown had struck, abandoning her at the threshold of discovery. She could still hear their hurried whispers, fragmented phrases filled with disbelief and dread. "We should go," one had said. "This isn't right," another had muttered, their words laced with an urgency that only heightened the growing sense of foreboding in her gut. Yet the mystery before her felt like a siren song, drawing her ever closer to its depths. Her gaze fell upon the formation again, and she noticed something she hadn't seen before, a faint glow emanating from the center. It pulsed rhythmically like the heartbeat of the earth, drawing her in with an irresistible allure. The light danced playfully, casting long shadows that twisted and contorted along the ground, creating shapes that felt almost alive. In that moment, Sarah was no longer certain whether the light was a beacon of hope or a harbinger of doom. Suddenly, a low, resonant sound rippled through the air, a deep vibration that resonated within her, as if the universe itself was speaking directly to her. It sent tremors of fear and exhilaration coursing through her veins. The sound was unlike anything she had ever heard before, neither animal nor mechanical, but something altogether otherworldly. It reverberated through the fabric of the night, shaking the very air around her, and Sarah felt an urge to respond, to acknowledge it, though she had no idea how. As she stood there, the world around her shifted, the shadows growing darker, denser. The light from the formation flickered, and for a heartbeat she thought she saw faces in the shadows, distorted, fleeting images that danced just out of reach of her understanding. Were they figures of the past, or mere figments of her imagination? The questions swirled in her mind like a tempest, each one heavier than the last, pulling her deeper into the abyss of uncertainty. The night became a living entity, breathing with her, whispering secrets that seemed to echo from the very dawn of time. She felt the ground shift subtly beneath her, and with it came a realization. This was not merely a phenomenon to be observed. It was a part of her, and she was a part of it. The choice to turn away now felt irrevocably hollow. The more she looked, the more she felt, an inexplicable bond forming between her and the formation, as if it were calling her to dance in the cosmic ballet of existence. Yet the fear loomed larger, gnawing at the edges of her resolve. What if the answers she sought were more than she was prepared to handle? The chilling thought slithered through her mind. What if this was a doorway, an invitation to knowledge that could unravel the very fabric of her reality? Could she truly grasp what lay beyond, or would she be consumed by the shadows that threatened to engulf her? In a moment of clarity, Sarah understood that the truth was elusive, a delicate thread woven through the tapestry of existence. It could be beautiful, horrifying, or perhaps a blend of both. The notion of facing the unknown was terrifying, yet undeniably intoxicating. She could feel the pull of the formation, the way it beckoned her with a siren's call, promising revelations beyond any earthly comprehension. With a deep breath, she took a step forward. The ground vibrated beneath her, and the air crackled with energy, as if the universe held its breath, anticipating her next move. The light pulsed in time with her heart, and in that moment, she felt the presence of something watching, something ancient that had been waiting for her to take this very step. But there, just at the edge of her perception, she noticed a small object half buried in the soil, something that should not have been there. It was a fragment, a shard of metal glinting in the eerie glow of the formation. Her heart raced as she reached down to grasp it, feeling the cold, smooth surface against her fingertips. It felt wrong, out of place, as if it had been left behind intentionally or perhaps forgotten. As she held the shard up to the light, her breath caught in her throat. Etched across its surface were symbols, strange, ancient markings that seemed to pulse with the same rhythm as the formation. It was a language she did not understand, yet it resonated within her, a whisper of truths long buried. The realization was a jolt, a flash of understanding that spread through her like wildfire. This was not just a mystery, it was a warning. Whatever had left this behind was keenly aware of her presence, of her curiosity. The quiet night suddenly felt alive with possibilities, each breath heavy with the weight of unspoken words. In that moment, she understood that the choice she faced was not merely about confronting the unknown. It was about embracing the darkness that lay within herself. The fear that had once threatened to consume her now transformed into a flicker of determination. She would not back away. She would not turn her back on the truth, no matter how unsettling it might be. As she stood there, the night stretched before her, vast and unyielding, holding secrets that could shatter the world as she knew it. She could feel the pulse of the earth resonating through her, a reminder that she was not alone. The shadows danced around her with a life of their own, urging her to take the final step into the abyss. And with that, Sarah made her choice. She would unravel the mystery, come what may, for the answers lay not just in the formation but within her own heart. The darkness was not to be feared. It was a part of her journey. A journey that had only just begun. The shard of metal glinted in her hand, a promise of the unknown, as she took a deep breath and stepped forward into the darkness, ready to embrace whatever revelations awaited her.